Alright folks, in this particular demo, I'm still in our lovely scene here, but I decided to make a nice little kind of double door thing that I had. This is all available in the starter content, so you don't have to worry about it. I am going to give myself a little bit of room to kind of move the doors, because this can get a little bit weird, especially if the thickness of the doors doesn't necessarily work for where this is positioned. So I'm going to just kind of eyeball it for now. As you can see, I turned off my snaps to kind of get that pretty close. But this can be a little bit troublesome, especially if you start bumping into the wall. So if that's going to be the case, just make your door a little bit wider and I think we'll be fine. But it is going to be one of those things that you have to look out for. So let me double check to see here. The door a little bit more so that we are kind of in the center. Close enough. And so this should work. Alright, now I'm going to do this on the first door here. I'm going to do this on the left. So the intention being that once we are in play mode, we'll be able to bump through these doors. Now if you notice, these doors don't actually have any collision, so we actually have to build some collision for them. Let's go ahead and open up the static mesh door, and let's take a look at what its collision is doing. Let's go ahead and let's see. Doesn't have any simple collision. That's fine. Does have complex collision though. That's a little too complex. Okay, let's turn that. Let's leave simple collision on. We'll turn complex collision on. I'm just going to go ahead and add a box collision. And I'm going to see if I can get this a little bit tighter. Make sure snaps are off. Okay, I'm going to hit save on that. I'm going to close that. Let's hit play. Good. Okay, so it looks like our doors are not going to properly collide. Excuse me. So, in order for this to work, we actually need to have both of our doors selected, and we need to actually simulate their physics. And we're not going to have any mask, and we're going to leave the default on. So what's going to happen is they're going to want to fly off. Just like, let me in. Let me in. So these doors are going to fly off their hinges. That's not exactly what we want to do, but this is the start to getting it working correctly. All right? The next thing we also want to do is we want to go in and grab, hey, looks, mine is already selected because I still have mine set in there. We want to grab a physics constraint actor. And then this is going to be kind of weird because we do want to put this in the right spot, but we also don't want to kind of shove it too far into the wall so that the door doesn't actually work. So we want to kind of bias its location to where the door is, something like that. And we don't want to be too far into the wall. So something like right there would probably be ideal. We can go to the middle or something depending on what we want to do. But we now want to go ahead and go into our details panel, select our wall as our constraint, and then select our door. Now this might not work with this particular wall here because this particular wall is a solid piece. So let's see if we can solve that issue. I'm not going to do that because, as you can see, the constraint is not actually going to work unless we modify the position. Let's see if we can modify that position a little bit better. Let's undo that. Let's see. So this is kind of the issue with having something like this, because we don't have the ability to split this wall into two pieces. And because of that, the constraint tool doesn't actually know where our first constraint is. It's looking for an actor. So actually, probably the easiest solution for this is going to be to make a kind of a placeholder. I'm just going to go ahead and for the purpose of this demo, I'm just going to make a cube. And I'm just going to put this in the position. And I'm going to narrow it out. And we'll make it relatively tall, the door. And then we'll put this in the right spot-ish. Make it a little wider. So this can be kind of like a door jamb or something. This is going to be kind of one of those things that you have to kind of keep in mind whenever you're working with constraints, because this might not give you the correct result right away. Bump that out a little bit. Okay, and then we'll do that again for this side. So now this should be able to give us our swinging door properly. Let's make sure that we have our element selected and that we're going to move it a little bit over to make sure that we're at least somewhat close. If we need to, we can move this a little bit to kind of make sure that the constraint works. But let's go ahead and place our constraint now. Let's select our placeholder. We can line that up a little bit better. And then let's select our door. And that's going to be good enough for where our location is, I think. Let's make sure that we're going to actually swing out on the correct axes. So I'm just going to go ahead and temporarily hide the wall here to make sure that I can continue working on this. We'll hide that so we get something that we can work with. Cool. Alright, so we have our door set up here. We have our linear damper set up. Let's go ahead and move this back to its default location. And we're going to leave a little bit of room for now so that we can do some kind of error correcting if we need to. Okay. Alright, let's go ahead and set up our motor now. So I've got this linked up properly. Let's go ahead and move down to our linear limits, but actually I want to make sure to go ahead and set my angular limits here. So I think what I want to do is I want to make sure that my motion is set up so that I am not having to worry about whether or not I am actually appropriately capturing the correct rotation whenever I'm actually looking at my door here. So let me double check here to see if I'm doing the right thing here. Let's see here. Let's go ahead and set up excuse me. Let's set up our swing motion 1. And I think what I want to do is I want to set this to limited. And I want this door to be able to swing 90 degrees. And then my swing 2 motion will be locked. And my twist motion will also be locked. So that's going to show that the door can swing in that direction. Okay, as we can see from the little representation of where the swing is, that's technically what we're actually aiming for. And we can see that from setting up our swing limits, and by having it limited, we can actually unlock these options. I haven't talked about them because we haven't really needed them because we've been showing just kind of dynamic swing and dynamic elements here. I also want to go ahead and change some of my swing. So this is what I was going to talk to you guys and gals earlier about. Your angular motor. Your angular motor controls the overall momentum of what is happening. A spherical lerp will assume things in like a rotating fashion, meaning that centers have gravity and things will rotate around that sphere, so to speak. That gave us kind of like the wrecking ball effect. However, if you're looking for something that twists and swings in particular, you're going to have to change the motor to be able to discern what each of these settings is going to do. And in fact, some of them don't even unlock unless you actually set up your twist and swing. So for example, by setting up twist and swing, I can now control what is happening rather than the door flying off the hinges in random locations. I'm going to go ahead and set up a swing, and I'm just going to set up an initial strength of, say, maybe 100. I think that might work, but I have no guarantee of it working for now. Let's just go ahead and set that up and see what it's going to do. Sorry about the cut there, folks. I had to step away for a sec. Okay, so now that we've set up our swing momentum and we've set up our strength, let's actually test out to see what's happening here. And let's double check to make sure that these doors are actually overlapping. I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just kind of maneuver them so that there's a little bit of space between them, and we're going to test them out here. As you can see, there's a lot of friction coming from the top of that door, so let's see if we can actually fix that. Let's go into our world outliner and let's see where is our hidden area here. Okay. Let's move this up a little bit to see if we can actually get this a little bit smoother. So we see that that's working, but there is a significant amount of friction coming from this particular door, and our door falls down. It's okay. Let's tweak and experiment. That's kind of the fun thing about physics. Let's go ahead and move some of these elements so that they're not immediately in the way, and let's see what is causing our issue here. What's probably causing it is that the corners of the door are running into the sides of the door, and yep, getting stuck. So let's see if we can move this a little bit out to see if we can get a smoother swing. The door might actually be running into the ground, which doesn't help things much. Let's see if we can move it up a little bit to see if we can get something that works a little better. There we go. Okay, let's go ahead and move this back in. Hit play. Okay, that looks good. Let's go ahead and move this back down. Test that out. It's a little too far down. As you can see, the friction does matter, so we can move it up a little bit. And again, we just don't have any room for the door, so let's just pretend that the door is working fine. We saw that the door is working fine. There we go. Okay, that's good. Let's go ahead and move this up. Let's go ahead and move these two elements back. Let's get them close so that they don't run into any issues. Let's hit play again. Cool. That one's going to fly off. All right. That's great. Now, funnily enough, we don't actually have to remake that. But you probably should, just for the sake of understanding how this works. The nice thing about this is we can duplicate this, and this should work. If I duplicate that, put it in the correct location, go back to the details panel, clear out the elements here. I drop the correct elements. It should work in theory. Let's see. Got a little bit too much friction on the floor. Again, this door is not in the correct location. Let's move it up a little bit. Lower. Hit play. Cool. We set a angular momentum. Let's blast through. Hey, what's going on? Okay. Now you'll see that it takes a while for them to kind of reach their resting point. They could probably stand to use a little bit of dampening. Let's go ahead and select our swing limit. Let's select our dampening to like maybe 15. And let's see if that actually creates a slightly different result. It's harder for them to come to rest since the doors don't have a... Let me actually blast through these. Rawr. So you see that they're coming to rest at slightly different rates. It's not really what I'm looking for. Let's set the damping down to default. So those are our angular limits. Those are the swing limits. Let's set this up to something like 500 and see if that gives us a result that we're looking for. Still a little bit too spongy. Let's keep adding and see what adding more dampening will do. All it's really doing is kind of resisting our pushing. So maybe we don't want to add more dampening. Let's go ahead and reduce that. Let's go ahead and have a look to see what the physics of the door is. So we have to abide essentially by what is happening physically with the door as well. There might be a little bit too much damping or not enough damping. So angular damping, let's do some more linear damping. Let's see, maybe set this up to like 50. We'll test this out. So that adds a lot of friction to the door, but the door does come to a close. It doesn't swing as comedically, but it's harder for us to get through. So that might not be the case. Set this back to our default. See if we add like 100 angular dampening. Let's see if that makes a difference. There we go. That's like something that I would like to see. We'll do the same thing to the other door. And we'll bring our saloon door back down. Let's scale it up a little bit so that we don't have any issues with the doors. Hit play. Oh, that one's getting stuck now. Again, it's getting stuck on either the door jamb or it's getting stuck. It's a little too much dampening, it seems. Let's go ahead and remove some of the angular dampening. Let's set this to like 35 for both of them. That should have applied it to both. Cool. Let's hit play. This one's being crammed open the moment that it gets shot in, mostly because of what is happening with the door jamb. You see there's a little bit of space over there and there's no space over here. Again, it's not a perfect science, folks. This is the kind of stuff that you would want to tweak to make sure that it gives you a pretty good result. But again, this is working okay for us. See if I can scale this out a little bit more. Maybe move it a little bit more out so that it's, again, because it's physics and it's physics-based, it's just one of those situations that you kind of have to tweak to get it working better. Probably less angular resistance, so angular dampening probably like 10. So play, shoot that open. Cool. At this point I would increase the weight of the character because that's about perfect. And there we go. There's our double door that we can now shoot through, and then we can start murdering all these boxes that apparently just fly away. Alright folks, I've got an outro video coming up, but I hope you guys have enjoyed watching me kind of make this. Again, it's not a perfect science, especially when it comes to physics. Typically speaking, I wouldn't want to have a physics door set up like this unless I really needed it. Like, this result is, I guess it's okay. It could use I mean, if we really care, we could use a little bit less dampening. Let's do a dampener 8. And then we'll increase the weight of the doors. Let's leave it to 100 kilograms. So again, at this point, I would increase the forward momentum of the character or increase the character's weight. But you get the idea. Tweaking those elements gives us a better result for what we're looking for. And of course, if we still shoot the doors, blam, 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 blam. Like if you want the character to shoot the doors on their way in, this is more like an old school Serious Sam effect. But you get the idea. This has been kind of a little demonstration on how to do physics inside of Unreal Engine 5. I hope you guys have enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys in the outro video. Bang, bang. That was fun.